live on Facebook.
Now we're recording. Welcome everybody. Whether you're on Facebook and caught us a little early, or whether we're on playing the recording here. But I have Dr. Greg Moody, Doctor PhD, not Doctor MD. But you've got an extreme background in. I just am now calling you schizophrenic because I don't know. I
But
don't
you,
know how many. I don't know how many rocket scientists, business owners, sales trainer, marketing trainer, psychologist, PhD in education exist in the world, and I'm guessing you're a unicorn. To me, the engineering, psychology thing puts you in the unicorn category, and then you add 20 years as a small business entrepreneur. I'm not sure how you classify that.
I'm
Is
not sure if any that's a compliment when you put it all together like that, but thank
I
you.
I I I, what's the complicated word you like to use? Multi-didactic? Is that
I we'll use
uh,
that, I guess.
yeah,
But I tell you, it allows me to help our clients. That's the important thing. I think it messes
that's
me up, but it allows me to help our clients a lot with all the stuff that they may have going on. Because when you're running a business, there's an infinite amount of things to do, and you got to be able to figure all that stuff out and stay focused on the one or two things that are going to get you in the right place at the right time. That's going to move the needle in your business as much as possible. And introducing you, Stephen Oliver, you're the best one at that, and you've been a mentor of mine for a lot of this time as well. And we've worked together so well for so many years, for more than decades now. That makes us old a little bit,
a
but
long time. Yes.
yeah, I mean, and I think that's what in this industry people have a lot of trouble with, is staying focused on the right thing. And it's one reason we can help them with so many things, because we cover so much ground in what we're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and to be serious on that combination is, I've always felt that in all roles in business you have to teach leadership. But I honestly believe that leadership is just being effective at selling. Selling on a one-on-one basis is just persuasion. Sales on a group basis is just persuasion of a group. And if you have a compelling vision, a compelling vision is almost by definition charismatic. And again, there's no moral component to that. Honestly, there should be, but you can shit all over yourself. But an effective leader is somebody who has a compelling vision, who's able to persuade others to follow in their vision. And as an advisor, it's so important. And I know, and you and I both know now, hundreds of advisors who, they're indistinguishable from a CPA, right? Or indistinguishable for some other technician who would probably be more comfortable behind the scenes manipulating data and rebalancing portfolios and all that kind of stuff. And they have to realize that they must develop personal sales skills one on one with a client. But then what gets missing so many times is they forget that same skill is just a one-to-many sales skill. There was a great copywriter. I believe I may be quoting from the wrong person, but I think it was John E. Kennedy, and he said that all direct mail, all advertising is just salesmanship in print. And I believe that what gets missing is there's many different ways to get to a larger audience. And if you're good at one-on-one sales, all you have to do is translate that message into a larger group setting, and you can be good at one-to-many sales. The What I wanted to talk about a little bit here, Dr. Moody, is Dan Kennedy has a great way of thinking about it. He has a little triangle, and one side of the triangle is market. In other words, who specifically do you want to talk to? And then that leads to message. What message will resonate with that market? And the bottom is media. So what media is going to be good to get to that market and good to convey that message? And I think that gets missed a lot of times in the starting point at looking at what an advisor can do to effectively market their practice. I have a very good friend. His name is Scott Tucker. He's in Chicago, and we met through through Dan Kennedy, and Very, very, very successful guy. He now has 3 retail offices as a financial advisor. Frankly, he got his start as a mortgage broker, and then his next step to that was teaching mortgage brokers how to market their practice, and then he morphed that into being a financial advisor. So, and he's been doing that for years now. But he has many different ways of marketing, but one of the ways that he effectively markets is he has an AM weekend radio show, a 1 hour radio show every week. And let's analyze that for a second. See, if I wanted a, let's say, a predominantly male, upscale, skews, financially stable, and I wanted a 45 to 60-year-old age range. Well, on radio, the place I would go if I were targeting that is I'd go to the same radio station that used to air, talk radio, the same one that used to air Rush Limbaugh, who now does Hannity and a whole bunch of those other people, right? But I think Hannity is probably number one or number two in that market right now, and after Rush has passed. I would go to that radio station. Here, I know exactly in Denver. I know exactly what radio station that is, and I could do every Saturday morning. I could buy an hour, and that's literally what you're doing is it's the same as a TV infomercial. TV infomercials usually are 28.5-minute blocks. Radio long form is you're buying an hour is typically what's going on. Plus or minus, usually a little airtime in between to transition shows. But see, that's one very effective way to hit an audience, because what he's doing is he's buying it at a time rather than buying 30-second spots, which are or 60-second spots on radio typically, which are very difficult to get response. He's actually, radio host, and he's playing Rush Limbaugh or whatever, and they're not paying him. Don't get it wrong. He's paying them. He's just buying the hour, and I'm sure they have a few stipulations on what he can do, but not much. And then, he can stage it. He can have staff members call in with a question. He can contact various clients ahead of time and say, I have this radio station. Would you call in and say good things about me, or would you call in and ask questions? And he can stage it a little bit ahead of time, which, knowing Scott, I'm sure he stages it extensively. But he can go on and talk about current events. So if I had, if I had a radio show right now, I mean, what's in the news? I've got one of the business networks on the TV right behind me. Joe Biden's giving a live speech on inflation hitting the worst level in 40 years, live right now. And so what I would do this week is I would have, let's talk about inflation. Let's talk about gas prices. Let's talk about how that affects your portfolio. Why do you need a professional handling your portfolio, and so forth. Greg, what would you add to that?
Well, and I think a lot of times people think that when we they turn on or off when we talk about something like radio, but all that method works really good if you match the market that you're trying to target. If you were trying to target the market that Scott's going for, that works perfectly. And what I think a lot of people miss is they go, well, I'm in the business. I want to get more traffic. What are people doing right now? They're doing Facebook marketing. Okay, so now I got to do Facebook, or they're doing LinkedIn marketing. So now I got to do LinkedIn marketing. And whatever the new shiny object is, that's what people go after. But there's a whole menu of media that you can use, and that the message and the media are what's going to pull in the right people, the right clients that you want to have. That's got to be looked at more broadly than what just the next shiny object is. We can't tell you how many people we've talked to where we suggested, for example, something like direct mail. Direct mail that can go directly to the targets that they're looking for, that'll have a really high response rate, that'll work like gangbusters. And yet, as soon as we say something like that, the blinds go down. They're like, no, well, how can that possibly work? That worked before the internet. It doesn't work at all right now, which is crazy. And now, to be fair,
it works better than it did before.
Yeah, to be fair, you've got to do it correctly, which most people don't do correctly, which is true of many, many different marketing strategies like the radio. If they don't do the radio correctly, then it won't work well at all. If you just go on the radio and talk about, stuff and you don't make sure they know how to get to you,
Yeah.
or they're not staged correctly, or you don't think through what's going to happen, then it's not going to work. Or, if you're an introvert and you hate talking on the radio and it's the worst thing you ever thought of and you get anxiety by us even mentioning it, well, that may not be the right strategy for you, just because it's not going to be, it's not going to fit you. We would help you with another thing to do. But it's important to understand not to just chase the shiny object, which is what we see almost invariably just about everybody we talk to is doing. They're chasing whatever shiny object is there. And number one, frequently that doesn't match any of this thing. It doesn't match the market they're going after. It doesn't convey the proper message. They're doing it incorrectly a lot of times, and it doesn't match anywhere. And they're not using any other media and any other types of marketing that they should be using so that they can get a consistent flow of leads. And the third problem is it might work really good for 1 or 2 months, and then it stops working for 2 or 3 months. And that's a pretty high anxiety way to run any practice.
Oh yeah, yeah, and the bright shiny object thing is so real. I've been researching TikTok, a lot right now, but TikTok I'm sure would be great for right now under 25. So if I were, Taylor Swift and I'm launching the new album, I would have stuff all over TikTok, right? If I was Nike and I've got the newest sneaker out, it's the number one by hours viewed, by numbers of video viewed, and so forth. However, if I'm trying to get to 52-year-old executive who has 5 million in the bank, I'm guessing, and all the demographics would prove me out. They're not watching TikTok videos, and so it's one of those things you have to be aware. But I think that little triangle is a good way to think about it. If I always start with market, who do I want? And in all marketing, is what we find is people want to do shotgun. They say, well, okay, how about everybody over 45 who has, $1 million in the bank? Well, okay, but why don't we define it a little bit clearer? How about if we go after plastic surgeons, right? And you become the expert for teaching plastic surgeons how that they can evolve out of, wielding the knife and actually doing surgery. Maybe that's an audience, and I'm just plucking that one out of the air. But if you niche and you target a specific career group that has a high probability of being a good market, you're much better off. Because see, what can we do once somebody decides that they want a niche? Well, okay, let's take that one as an example, and we haven't done that recently. But if I sat down and I said I want to be the guy for plastic surgeons, well, what it does is it makes it much easier for me to be a national player rather than 5-mile radius around my office, right? But then what we can do is we can look at sources like SRDS, and we can say, what magazines do plastic surgeons read? And I guarantee there's 2 or 3 or 4 trade magazines. We were doing this recently with dentists. What trade magazines do they read? What online newsletters do they pay attention to? What websites are doing training and by the way, in almost all of those niche categories, doesn't matter what it is. If you look at financial advisor niche magazines and publication, there's almost nobody teaching financial advisors how to be better at selling, how to be better at marketing. It's all, here's the right EFT to buy and stuff like that, right? It's all technical knowledge. If you look at dentist magazines, it's all about how to do crowns better and cosmetic surgery or whatever. You look at plastic surgery, cosmetic surgeons, it's all about the technical thing. So you can be a category of one in tightly defined niches, is what I'm saying. But if I wanted to do that, what do? I say, well, where do plastic surgeons hang out? Do they have groups on Facebook that they hang out in? Do they have groups in LinkedIn that they hang out in? Do they actually have networking groups on a citywide, statewide, national basis? Who are they certified through? Is there an organization? I'm sure there is an organization that licenses them. Are there trade associations that they belong to? Is there a statewide convention? Is there a national convention? Where do they hang out? And all of a sudden, see, once I know who my market is and I niche it down really well, I could go find plastic surgeons that I can market them by email. I can market them by fax, and that still exists, sort of. I can find their trade magazines, and I could do ads in their trade magazines. I could become a columnist in their trade magazines and talk about how many cosmetic surgeons create income, but they don't create wealth. And the guy's, parking his Ferrari in front of the practice, but he doesn't have any real assets to speak of. I can have that kind of conversation as a columnist. I can write articles for the trade magazines. I can then be on their websites and I can buy space in their email. I can be on their websites.
Get their
But then I
convention.
can yeah, I could become a speaker at their convention. Maybe I can become a keynote speaker at their convention. At the very least, I can have, I can rent a booth at their at the trade show at their convention, and everything else is about the gadgetry, and I'm at the, here's how you can retire early and retire rich, and I can have the free book, my free book, and my free report, and all that kind of stuff. Pick up from there. But that's why it's so important to define the market, but then to define the market narrowly.
Well, and you said the idea of a shotgun. The problem is, I think they use a rifle to try to hit a shotgun of many targets,
Right.
and instead they should be using an actual shotgun, which is with lots of pellets of marketing to hit
Yeah.
one little narrow shotgun.
Right.
And we need a drawing to that, I think, because that
Yeah.
would be a really good metaphor of what's happening. We
Yeah.
need to have narrow the target down enough and I think it's backwards thinking. Well, I want everybody. Who do you want to have as potential clients in your practice? Well, everybody that's 50 and up that has a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just way too broad. You're gonna be have no specific message for anybody, and nobody's going to pay attention to you, and you're going to look just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's the problem really in this industry, is everybody looks just like everybody else. There's no real reason to use you versus another advisor. Why should I speak to you? And that's an important question to ask. Why should I talk to you? What you just mentioned, if I was a dentist and you were the advisor for dentists, well, why should I talk to you? Well, because I'm the investment advisor for dentists. I help dentists retire early and retire rich. And the way I do that is, and then you have a plan, you have a reason to it. And here's my free book. Wow, that would be a completely different conversation in 30 seconds that you could have with somebody, and they're probably going to be likely to contact you. Now, we would help you with getting them to set an appointment with you right on the spot and making sure things work really well so that you have your sales process down.
Yeah.
It's completely different than, I like to work with older, middle-aged and higher rich people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me give you an example, and we'll go back to the dentist thing. Is somebody else who's
And by the way, just so everybody's clear, sorry to interrupt. We're not suggesting dentists for everybody.
No.
I mean, whatever niche seems to,
or cosmetic surgeons or whatever.
we work with people that work with people that have work with niches in people that work in the oil industry. People work with whatever industry or whatever group or whatever.
General contractors.
Portion enthusiasts.
Police, fire, martial arts.
Yeah, we could narrow it down, but you could have multiple ones that you work with, but we just need to be focused.
Yeah.
So we can help you be focused on what you do next. And then the media and the message come from there. Go ahead.
Well, and we're going to wrap up pretty quickly because we're going to make this a little bit of a short rant. But on that note is, once you define that, well, hell, there's all kinds of people anymore on any subject you can imagine that have podcasts. You can now become the guest expert on their podcast because, the secret, if you don't know it, behind the podcast is, unless you're Joe Rogan, everybody's desperate to find somebody who will be interesting to talk to. So there's 1.5 million podcasts right now, and there's top 20 people are begging to be on, and then the other 1,490,000, whatever it is are desperate to find guests and are searching everywhere. So I was listening to a financial advisor talk about what they had done recently, and again, it goes back to the dentist, which why I said that, but he found a person who does like what we do, but he works specifically with dentists, coaching dentists, and they built a relationship. And so what he did is he took a book that he already had in the can, change the title, and instead of financial planning for retirement, I forget what the name was. It was financial retirement planning for dentists, and did a little bit of search and replace and put dentist and maybe added a chapter about dentist. And so now he goes on a podcast for somebody who has a big following among dentists. He managed to give away 2,500 of the books in hardback, and then the gentleman was doing a convention and had 500 people live, 500 people by simulcast, and managed to go on there. In total, he had 2,500 people raise their hand and wanted his book. Well, that turned into, in 90 days, 50 million assets under management and 45 new clients just in the first 90 days. Now, 45 new clients means he had another 2,450 dentists on the list to follow up. My guess is those two activities, showing up at the live event, being on the podcast, offering the free report, that's going to turn into 200 million, maybe even 300 million in assets under management, 150, 200 new clients just from that one activity. So once you define a target, in marketing terms, it's usually referred to as host-parasite relationships. The financial advisor industry butchers it a little bit by talking about circle of influence marketing. But usually what they mean by circle of influence marketing is like the old vacuum cleaner sales thing. That's what I've been railing on recently, is it's go sell your mom, go sell your aunt, go sell your frat buddies, and then, you're done. So it's what we mean is find somebody who has a big herd and then put together an effective mechanism to convert those people into clients. I know you've got to run, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't mind staying a little bit to follow up on this. And almost everybody does that wrong. Yeah. And instead of it being, if you're selling to your friends, buddies, frat buddies, and whatever, that's such a small market. Almost everybody else that is your circle of influence, it's automatically going to be limited, even if you're very, very popular. Yeah. It's going to be limited. And what we want to be able to do is expand that into something that's large, that you can, and you almost always have to help the other people that are in that circle of influence. If it's going to be, a lawyer you're working with, or somebody in the dentist group that you're working with, you almost always have to help them with the way that the process goes, so that there's something in it for them, not a kickback or whatever, so that it's a positive benefit from them, and do that a correct way so that it's massively productive for you and for them. In a way that they probably have never thought of, because almost nobody does this correctly.
Yeah. And what we talk about is a Parthenon, and kind of like the facade of Wall Street I have behind me, a lot of pillars going on, and the way to interpret that is find a market that you want to target, and then find a lot of different media that you can get to them. And unfortunately, what most people do is even if they niche and they find a market, what they say to us is, how do I get to everybody who could be a potential client from Facebook? And the better answer is, what specific target audience do I want? And then what's every different way that I could effectively get to them? And I think of it as coming at them from all angles, right? If they got a piece of mail from me, they saw me on Facebook, they saw me on LinkedIn, they saw me in their email, then they go to the convention and I'm a speaker, and then there's a booth out in the lobby, and then they open the trade magazine and there I'm at. All of a sudden you become the go-to expert, right? They all of a sudden they get your book on their desk, very narrow targeted for them. So what we want to try to do is build every media possible that's going to work, that's going to synergize with each other to target a specific person. And that's why the narrowcast it's a lot easier. See, what do you want to try to do? Buy an ad in, Cosmetic Surgery Daily, or Cosmetic whatever it's called, Daily, whatever their magazine is, or do you want to try to buy an ad in the Wall Street Journal, right? I mean, Fisher does that all the time. They do full page ads, and I see Schwab and so forth. But as an individual advisor, I can probably go buy a half page ad in one of the niche trade magazines and do it fairly effectively. Plus, guess what? The more targeted it is, the higher response rate I'm going to have by far.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. I think we've covered a lot of stuff that's going to be good for people. Make sure that you follow these directions, and we can make a big difference in what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, we'll follow up from there. Well, thank you, sir. glad
you.
to glad to have you, and we'll go from there.